From lockdown in Melbourne is Liberal Senator James Paterson. Thanks very much for your time. What was your response? First of all, I'm sure you were tuning in like a lot of Melbourne. What did you make of the plan outlined yesterday?
Well, Tom, I've been absolutely inundated over the last 24 hours by very distressed constituents who have been in touch to share with me their deep concern about the plan that the Premier outlined. They don't feel like it's a pathway out of lockdown at all. In fact, they feel like it's a pathway for continued, ongoing, indefinite lockdowns, and they're very concerned about what that means for them. And their concerns have been reflected more broadly today by the business community, by leading epidemiologists and the medical community, who are all very sceptical about the details outlined in the Premier's plan.
So the details, or at least the numbers, if not the full detail on it from Daniel Andrews, according to him, if you open things up again, and if we focus on when curfew will be lifted, everyone will be able to get back to school, hospitality will be able to open. At the moment, it's based on a daily number of 5 cases per day over a fortnight average. That gets a 3% chance of a new outbreak and then lockdowns. If you shift it to 25, so you have a more generous number when you unlock 25 daily cases, that possibility of a third wave is 62%. On those numbers, is this the logical choice to take the Conservative path?
Well, they're incredibly ambitious, incredibly tough targets to meet. They're tougher targets than any other state or territory has set. In fact, Victorians are suffering under some of the longest and harshest lockdowns in the world, and will be required to achieve far more than any other people in the rest of the world to get out of those lockdowns. I mean, at the beginning of this crisis, Tom, we were told by leaders like Daniel Andrews that it was necessary to have these temporary, very tough restrictions because it will allow us to flatten the curve and prevent the health system from being overloaded. Well, 6 months on, it's not looking very temporary anymore, and Victorians are entitled to be as angry as they are today.
We've heard the federal government just now single out contact tracing. The state government, Victoria, says it's vastly improved contact tracing. I think that the stats coming out were from missing 10% of beginning of investigations within 24 hours. It's now only missing 2%. So it says it doesn't need any more help from the federal government. What's your response to that?
Well, Tom, you certainly hope that it was improved because, frankly, it was a shambles earlier on in this crisis. It was totally overwhelmed by the breakout that it occurred again as a result of another public policy failure, which is the hotel quarantine debacle. I really hope it has improved, and I hope it's improved at least to the New South Wales standard, because they've been able to demonstrate that they can get on top of low levels of community transmission and keep on top of it with an excellent tracing system. Victoria only got back to the situation it is now because it wasn't able to do that.
We had, of course, the federal government offer assistance, and seemingly through whatever labyrinthine bureaucrats and so on, or whether it went to a leader or whatever happened, it was refused on hotel quarantine. Are you worried this could echo that, the refusal of more help on contact tracing?
Well, I hope Daniel Andrews has learned the errors that he made in turning down those offers of assistance from the ADF, which were very clearly made despite Daniel Andrews' denial, and in fact taken up by other states, including New South Wales, Queensland and Western Australia. I certainly hope out of pride or some other misplaced emotion, he's not turning down any offers of success that will come from the federal government at this stage, because it is in all of our interest that Victoria get on top of this and get past it as soon as possible, because it's not just going to have a devastating impact on the Victorian economy and Victorian society, but it's going to hold back the whole country.
Are we going to see widespread disobedience, do you think, in Melbourne in particular?
I hope not, Tom. I don't think the answer is disobedience. As tough as these restrictions are, as unjustified as many Victorians feel that they are, as angry as they feel that they are, that they're only being imposed on them because of the failures of the Daniel Andrews administration, I don't think disobedience is the answer. And I hope Victorians grit their teeth and bear what is going to be another couple of very difficult couple of months.
So you've always been one for civil liberties, but right now your message is to Melburnians, Victorians, obey all of the various very tough restrictions right now that are going to be in place and mean that Melbourne's going to be under lockdown for many, many weeks in the end.
You're right, Tom. I am for civil liberties. I am for the right to protest and the right to free speech and the right to scrutinise and criticise your own government. And I think, frankly, the very harsh way in which the Victorian government is now cracking down on protests, in stark contrast to the way that they did not crack down with the BLM movement in June reflects very poorly on them and their respect for the civil liberties and freedoms of Victorians. But I do not advocate, I do not encourage, I do not suggest Victorians should do anything other than abide by the law. It would be an unwise thing to do that.
So what are you saying, though, about the right to protest? Because right now, essentially, the government is shutting down any protests because of concern for COVID-19 and shutting down anyone even suggesting a protest. Do you still advocate that use of what is the law?
Tom, that's a hard one, right? It's a hard one, freedom that Australians have fought and died for on the battlefield. And I absolutely understand why Victorians are deeply concerned why that has been taken away from them. And I absolutely expect that it will be restored as soon as it is safe to do so. But while ever we have a Chief Health Officer telling us that it is dangerous to gather in numbers outside, then the rule of law must be enforced. And it must be enforced fairly and equally on everyone, not selectively based on the political philosophy of those who are protesting. It has to be done fairly.
James Paterson, appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Tom.